3 brands, 3 go-to-market motions, 1 paid media playbook. We're pulling back the curtain of Unbounce's digital marketing strategy on today's episode of Closing Time. Thanks for tuning into Closing Time, the show for go-to-market leaders. I'm Val Riley, head of marketing for LeadsRx, Insightly, and Unbounce. And today I am joined by a super special guest, someone who I am lucky enough to work with every day. She is our senior manager of digital marketing right here at Unbounce. Please welcome Alexa Tsongranis.
Thanks, Val. So great to be here. It feels very full circle.
It does. Well, as I mentioned, we're going to pull back the curtain a little bit today. So it's going to be really exciting to share some of what goes on here every day at Unbounce. As I mentioned, we do have 3 brands total. So we're going to talk about each one. But before we go there, let's start with a little bit of your background, Alexa. So you came from the agency world and then moved in-house. So just start there. Like, what was that shift like for you? And what lessons did you bring from the agency side?
Yeah. So I think the thing about working in an agency world is that you're always juggling multiple clients, multiple different go-to-market motions, maybe none if it's B2C and B2B clients. And the learning has to move a lot faster. You iterate faster and you have to prove performance. There's really no time to say, well, let's just test this creative and see if it works. You are on the hook for those clients. So moving in-house, obviously then is very different with one brand or then multiple brands in the case of the Insightly, Unbounce, and LeadsRx family. So I'm in a pretty unique position now that I'm kind of back in an agency world, even though it's very much in-house.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. So if anybody is new to Closing Time or not familiar with the story, Unbounce landing page builder has been in business for a very long time. Back in 2021, Unbounce acquired LeadsRx marketing attribution software, and then in 2024 merged with Insightly CRM. So as Alexa mentioned, 3 brands kind of coming together. So Alexa, you in that merger came from the Insightly business and have since taken on Unbounce and LeadsRx paid media programs. How would you describe the before and after of paid media across those 3 brands?
Yeah, absolutely. So interestingly enough, all 3 brands, when I was coming in, actually had an agency managing them. So that was originally my role and title was to manage the agencies, make sure that the strategy was sound and that everything was working. Obviously, again, having that experience coming from agency to in-house, not everything's done a little bit differently, and 3 different agencies managing 3 accounts means that the strategy does look a lot different. So in the beginning, for all 3 brands, things were a little bit more hodgepodge. There wasn't a clear strategy of exactly what was working for anything. So I knew that I had to kind of take those back under my role and be able to actually execute and unify the strategy just in terms of even as small as campaign naming structures to actually conversion goal setups. Those things are pretty different depending on where you maybe learned how to do those things. So that was the first, probably before. The after now, we have very unified structure. So everything is named the same. We know where our conversion goals, we have the setups for analytics and tracking the same across all 3 brands. So we're in a lot better of a spot knowing that it kind of runs in-house like an agency, but consolidating all of those other things.
Every time I've worked with a paid media manager, they always come in, look at the accounts and think, and then they say, hey, is it okay if I start from scratch? So I feel like there's every paid media manager has the setup or the infrastructure, the way that they like it, the way it makes sense to them. But let's talk about the foundation, like that infrastructure. In SaaS, we're always talking about the importance of a strong tech stack and shared tools. What does that look like at Unbounce?
Yeah, so amazingly enough, we are very lucky to actually be able to drink our own champagne. We use Unbounce to build all of our campaign landing pages and Insightly to track our sales, marketing activities, and just kind of full funnel. And then for LeadsRx, we actually are able to understand attribution much better than just using any of the other tools like a GA or even Google Ads and their native platforms. So using our own tools really gives us kind of an edge, I would say, because not only are we selling the thing that we're using, but we're also able to kind of see exactly how someone would use it, those pain points that are happening. And so across that whole funnel, when we're building the campaigns really from start to finish, I'm able to know exactly what needs to change because I'm using it day to day.
Yeah, I'd say being your own customer, there's a certain power in that not all marketing teams get to experience. And it really is nice. Even when we're asked to give feedback to the product team, or we can see a customer success ticket come in and think, oh yeah, yeah, I've had that issue, or I know how to solve that issue because I'm a user as well. It puts us in a unique perspective.
Absolutely.
So I like to say that our team runs like a mini agency in our organization, partially because we have 3 quote unquote clients, but we have a very capable content team, we have a very capable design team, and we have a very capable website team. And so everybody kind of works for the 3 quote unquote clients that we have. I really like that mindset. I think it forces us to stay nimble. Can you share maybe from the paid media lens, what that kind of framework does for you and how it helps you approach paid media?
Yeah. So although we're able to kind of work in that agency kind of template, I would say, we are using that from the paid media side as well, just because, again, things have to be flexible, but there needs to be a framework that we're working off of. So campaign templates, again, using Unbounce there, are pretty standard. So we're able to kind of use them as like a modular kind of plug and play to know that the same structure is going to be happening across all 3 brands, but the messaging is going to be different based on offer, based on the brand, based on ICP. And again, we know that those life cycles are a little bit different as well. And we've been able to build those creative systems, again, playing off of our creative team or our content team, to know that we have just these brand docs and decks that I can kind of plug and play, like what messaging works where, and makes it a lot easier actually to be able to kind of work through new campaigns, or actually being able to refresh anything evergreen or anything that was older on the account. So really those working off of the templates, the brand guides, having a content structure in place that, again, we can plug and play a lot faster, makes that iterative testing so much easier on the paid media side.
For sure. I'd like to pull back the curtain a little bit more, because I think our story is super interesting. And I think a lot of folks who have been through merger and acquisition activity can really relate to is the fact that when organizations join together, they may not have a aligned set of definitions for their go-to-market. And one of the ones that we faced during this most recent merger was, for instance, and it sounds super basic, but just the definition of an MQL. So talk us through the process of kind of aligning definitions within the organization post-merger. And then how did that maybe change the way we approach campaigns and optimization?
Yeah, so this is actually something I could probably talk about for 30 minutes on its own. This was something that was super exciting for me. And this was really one of the biggest unlocks for our team after that post-merge. So sharing the definitions across brands, again, sounds really easy, but it was pretty difficult in practice. We knew that every brand had its own definition of a marketing qualified lead. And then that meant the handoff process actually was pretty different for each brand as well. So what we wanted to do is just optimize that. First, again, actually getting the definition down, who's a hand raiser, what's marketing qualified, what's then maybe sales qualified, what's the follow-up process there as well. And we brought everyone to the table. It was not just marketing, it was not just sales, ops was in there. Anyone really on the go-to-market side had a say, because this was going to change, again, not just for 1, but 3 different clients essentially. And so once we were able to set what that truly meant for all 3 brands, then our processes slightly changed as well. A lot of reporting and actually, again, building those systems in place to make sure that everything was set up from routing to handoff, and then actually reporting. And again, on my end as well, I needed to know exactly what we were looking for, just to be a really good partner for sales as well. Because at the end of the day, if the leads aren't flowing incorrectly or we don't have enough of them, it makes their job a lot harder. So the alignment really did give us the clarity, build campaigns that map to our expectations across the organization. And it meant that our dashboards actually finally spoke the same language. It wasn't an MQL for one brand is actually an SQL for another. We knew exactly when we said this many MQLs per brand, it was the exact same definition. So totally a game changer. Wish we would have done that a little bit sooner, but you never know what you don't know when you get started.
Yeah. And I would like to emphasize too that we say you lead 3 brands, but Within those brands, we have multiple motions. So for instance, there's an Unbounce product-led growth motion where we want people to come to the website and check out, buy the plan that they want. And then there's a sales-led motion where we want them to talk to a sales rep if they're, for instance, a marketing agency, and we can offer them additional services. Similarly, for the CRM product, there is a, swipe your credit card and go motion. And then we have a much more involved motion for those mid-market and larger companies who might want services or additional modules. So it really is multiple motions within those brands. And so when you think about all of that, like what you're really managing it feels almost like a portfolio.
A little bit. Again, it's very exciting work, but it does sometimes get a little taxing because you do have to be able to segment that out in your brain. And even just in these conversations, it's very easy to be like, oh, well, this is, what we do every day. But you kind of have to remove yourself from the larger picture and say, oh, right, this is a lot. And if when you're explaining it to people outside of the organization, it does kind of add up.
Yeah, well, like it's context switching, right? Like, midday, maybe you're looking at campaigns that are optimized for a hand raise for a demo. And then sometimes you're looking at campaigns that are optimized for that free trial. So how do you keep alignment between sales, marketing, and ops with all of that context switching throughout the day?
Yeah. So a lot of it really is just understanding kind of that it will happen at some point. There's never a perfect day that I only get to work on one exact thing. Because again, when something comes up, that's the thing you need to take care of. But I found that building in focus really does help. So not essentially time blocking per brand or per motion, but understanding that maybe a full day goes to one brand and then you can do those separate motions because at least it's an easier, quicker context switch than per brand, per motion. So that's one of the first things I kind of know is if I can block out a little bit of time or a day specifically where I'm working on that does really help because it does, at the end of the day, context switching really kills the strategy. So grouping the work by type and then minimizing bouncing between brands day to day. That shift has really just helped me stay a little bit more focused and think a little bit more strategically instead of just reacting to, oh, we need more ads for the PLG motion versus the sales-led growth, or we're switching back and forth between Unbounce and Insight within the same hour might be a little bit too complex.
Yeah. And your cheat code is we work in different time zones. So, I don't bother you in your afternoon. I think that bears mentioning.
That does help. The time zone differences do give me a little bit more focus time post 2 p.m. Pacific.
That's right. So let's just get a little bit into work-life balance because I think all the digital marketers I've ever worked with really are people who can go heads down into a data project and come up like 8 hours later and just not even realize that it's gotten dark and it's bedtime. So, I want to make sure that you have, work-life balance, that you have set priorities that you're comfortable with. But this is a high pressure role for anyone, especially someone with as many brands as you're managing. So just talk about like balancing workload and pressure while still really feeling the weight of the company in terms of ad performance.
Yeah. So, it took me a really long time in my career to actually feel comfortable with actually saying no to requests, not just to say no, but saying no with actually data or actually backing up those decisions to understand where my time is better spent. So understanding that, I am a people pleaser and I do love to just say yes to tasks. I'm usually the first person to respond to someone on Slack, which is a badge of honor that I wear quite proudly. But I do realize as we scaled, as I added more brands and more motions under the belt, it wasn't so easy just to say yes to everything and actually work through all those things. So protecting bandwidth is just as important as chasing growth, especially when we do have such a large portfolio and so many different complex things that we're working on day to day. But I really do rely very heavily on the data to help me make those calls. If something's not showing early signs of success or growth, I know that maybe needs to be cut back. I share that information with the team to say, this was a good test. Maybe let's not do another one until something else dynamically changes, or if we have additional budget that we just need to test more things. It's not about being risk averse. It's really about staying focused on what moves the needle. At the end of the day, I know that revenue is the last thing that we're looking at, but it starts at the top of the funnel. So If something's not showing even an MQL success, we're not getting leads in the door, it's definitely not going to turn into revenue. I need to be able to say no to that and back that up with the data. So I found that kind of mindset, just coming in knowing that you can say no as long as there's some data to back it up. You've tried it in the past, why it doesn't work, helps us scale a lot smarter and kind of cut out the noise.
All right, let's bring things to life with an example. How does our paid search strategy adapt across different go-to-market motions?
So what we were able to do when we were first kind of figuring out how to unify these strategies and make it, again, just repeatable and scalable was really looking at our Google search strategy. We knew that we had basically 3 buckets, how we classify those campaigns. So for the entire organization, it's brand, non-brand, and then competitive campaigns. And luckily for each of those go-to-market motions, we were actually able to distinctly show exactly what campaigns need to be within there. So for Unbounce, we are a category leader with strong brand recognition. Brand search is our most efficient. So we set that up first. And again, kind of waterfalls down to the other 2 brands. For LeadsRx, the priority for that kind of campaign structure is around education. So we're really focusing more on that non-brand, the terms around that. That's that second kind of waterfall stage. And then for Insightly, we know that we're kind of more in a competitive market. There's more direct competitors with brand names that are a little bit more recognizable. So our ICPs are already comparing those CRM solutions. So that's that third kind of waterfall stage in that competitive bucket. Structurally, the campaigns actually look identical. They're named the same. They have the same intent layers and keyword structure, but it really is kind of fine-tuned to that go-to-market motion. And really why we are able to do this is the example of why one playbook has to be modular. It's the same tool, different applications, again, different keywords at the end of the day, but exact same structure and setup. Again, makes it so much easier to scale across brands. And hopefully if someone else were to look into the account who maybe doesn't do paid media day to day, can see exactly what's going on and actually be able to make those changes or make any assumptions about the data.
I will attest to that. It is very clear to see everything that's going on in our accounts, even for someone who's not in there every day. So I'll validate that. Let's do one more question. I feel like we could talk for hours, but if you're talking to the in-house marketers out there and they're trying to scale their paid programs, what would be your best piece of advice?
Yeah, so there's a couple things that come to mind first of really what kind of helps. But I think if I had to put it into a very small soundbite, it's that clarity scales. If you have clarity in what you're doing around ICP, around the go-to-market motion that you're kind of focused on, that makes your job so much easier and honestly makes the jobs of the team and organization around you a lot easier. Complexity doesn't. So when you're working in complex kind of pattern strategies, motions, the more noise and things that you're adding to those accounts, it's going to make it really hard, I think, to be successful. So I think if you get very super focused on your ICP, you know exactly kind of what you're targeting, you can build everything around it, but kind of keep it a little bit more niche to start and then build up as you get the data around it.
All right. So I'm hearing clarity scales, complexity doesn't. And I think that's a great way to end our episode. This was so good. Thank you for letting us peek behind the curtain a little bit.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me.
I love when the podcasts I listen to give us a sneak peek behind the curtain. So this was wonderful. You know how to reach Alexa. You can reach out to Unbounce, Insightly, or LeadsRx on any of our social channels. And remember, you can get this episode and every episode of Closing Time delivered right to your inbox. Just click the link in the show notes. We'll see you next week.